Paramedic Project, practical tips for novice paramedics. Today we're talking about the primary survey in episode 1. The primary survey is so important because it really forms the foundation of a thorough patient assessment. In my experience, it's something that not a lot of people do on every single patient they see. Whether that's because you are working in a city station and you're seeing lots of people who aren't critically ill, you drop that from your patient assessment, or because you work in a country station where you're not seeing many patients and you become a little bit complacent. So it's important that this becomes part of your paramedic practice very early on in your careers. So my tips for doing a great primary survey, first of all, is you need to do it on every patient. Second of all, you need to actually touch the patient when you do this primary survey. And that means that you need to actually take a peripheral pulse. It's not putting an SpO2 monitor or a SATS probe on the person's finger. So I'll just demonstrate how I take a primary survey on a conscious patient. So first of all, my primary survey starts obviously when I arrive at the person's at where the patient is. So I'm assessing for danger, of course. That's the most important thing, and I've got my personal protective equipment on, my gloves, my eyewear, things like that to make sure that I'm safe, my partner's safe, and the patient's safe as well. Second of all, when I'm approaching the patient is when I start assessing their response. If they're a conscious patient, I introduce myself. Hi sir, how are you going? And their response to me tells me whether they're conscious or not, or their level of consciousness. So on approach to the conscious patient, you introduce yourself. When they respond to you, that's a sign the patient's conscious. If they talk back to you, that's a sign that they've got a pattern airway, that they're protecting themselves. The next step on the process is to assess their respiratory rate. And I'll do this by, first of all, asking the patient, sir, do you mind if I take your pulse? I take their wrist as if I'm taking a pulse, but I'm actually looking at their chest at this stage. And with my watch in the foreground and their chest in the background, I can easily assess their respiratory rate. It's good to hold the patient's wrist so that they don't adjust their own respiratory rate when you're actually taking it. At this stage, the patient thinks I'm taking a peripheral pulse, but I'm actually assessing their rest rate. And then finally, I'll get to their peripheral pulse, which I then take, and then that's our complete primary survey. This is really going to guide you further in your management of the patient and to give you a very good idea in the first minute or so with the patient exactly what's going on. So thanks for joining us, and check us out on social media, and we'll see you next time.